Hey, night travelers! Grab that cozy blanket and dim whatever screen you're staring at, because we're heading out on the dusty road with a band of sun-baked crusaders. Men who thought road trip snacks meant salted meat that could outlive a camel and biscuits so hard they were legally considered building materials. If that sounds appetizing, well, settle in. Quick pit stop first. Tap that subscribe button if you like your history equal parts fascinating and slightly ridiculous, and drop a comment telling me what time zone you're listening from. Bonus points if you're snacking on something crunchier than Crusader hardtack. All set? Good. Let's tuck ourselves into the column somewhere between the banner bearers and the mule cart and feel the miles slide under our boots. You wake just before dawn because medieval roosters apparently run on spite and black coffee. The air in the makeshift camp still reeks of last night's campfire, horse sweat, and a hint of boiled garlic, the Crusader equivalent of perfume. Your feet are already aching, although you haven't taken a step today. Why? Because yesterday you tramped close to 20 miles across Anatolian gravel, your chainmail nibbling your shoulders like a colony of vindictive ants the entire way. And the thing that keeps you from turning around and heading back to some imaginary cozy cottage in France? 5 humble foods rattling in a leather satchel, promising at least enough calories to reach the next river ford alive. Number 1. Salted pork. Thick slabs of belly meat packed in barrels of brine, so concentrated it could pickle a saint. The good news? It keeps for months under a Mediterranean sun. The bad news? Each bite siphons moisture out of your body faster than a desert gin. Crusaders countered that by, well, whatever liquid they could bully out of the landscape, usually half-fermented wine or barley beer that tasted like sour bread. You chew the pork anyway because protein equals muscle, and muscle equals the strength to keep carrying a shield that feels heavier than your mother-in-law's opinions. Number 2. Hardtack. Imagine flour, water, and the concept of misery baked into a tile so rigid you could shingle a roof with it. The trick is to soak it in the thin wine until it stops threatening to snap your teeth. If you're lucky, the wine also flushes out the weevils living in tiny condos inside the biscuit. Extra protein, the veterans joke. You pretend to laugh and keep chewing. Number 3. Dried figs. Sun-shrunk, sugary, and blessedly soft. They're the Crusader version of candy. Merchants in port towns sell sacks of them for a kingly price, and every man in the column guards his personal stash like a dragon hoarding rubies. You tear one open mid-march, and the seeds crunch like sand between molars, but the rush of sweetness almost makes you forget the metal shirt stuck to your spine. Number 4. Lentils. Not glamorous, but they traveled well in linen sacks and, when boiled with a slice of that salted pork, turned soupy enough to trick your stomach into thinking it was feasting. At night, cauldrons bubble over smoky fires, and conversations drift from pious hymns to unprintable jokes while you wait for the legumes to soften. Lentils are humble, earthy, and reliable, everything the Grand Crusade so often wasn't. Number 5. Almonds. Light, portable, and packed with fat, they're the medieval power bar. Knights crack them between gauntlets. Foot soldiers nibble them slowly, counting each kernel like coins. Almonds don't melt, spoil, or leak. They simply sit in your pouch like quiet guardians against sudden hunger. On a brutal uphill stretch, when your calves burn and the horizon refuses to get closer, 2 almonds under the tongue keep the legs moving. With these 5 foods as your lifeline, the march begins. The sun climbs, turning every metal helm into an oven. Dust rises, coating beards and eyebrows until the entire host resembles ghosts forged from clay. Somebody starts a low chant, half prayer, half marching cadence, and soon 1,000 boots strike the ground in lopsided rhythm. Each step is a tiny vow. I will reach the holy city. I will see foreign oceans. I will not die on this nameless road.
Mid-morning, a scout gallops back with news of a stream ahead. The column perks up like wilting flowers promised rain. You can almost taste the cold water washing the brine from your tongue. But when you arrive, the stream is a trickle threading through mud baked into pottery by the sun. Horses shove forward, men curse, and leather buckets scrape at the shallow pools. You crouch, scoop a palmful, and let the grit settle on your teeth. It's warm, slightly green, but it's life. Lunch, if you can call it that, happens while walking. You tear off a strip of pork, wedge it between molars, and let your own saliva and faith do the rest. The road tilts upward, the sky tilts downward, and the world becomes a tunnel of heat. Somewhere behind you, a mule collapses. No one stops. The driver just mutters a prayer and yanks the pack onto his own back. Weight has to move. The crusade devours both distance and beasts without mercy. Later, the road snakes through a cluster of olive trees. The commander allows a short halt, and men scramble like children to pluck the bitter fruit. Raw olives are harsh, but chew them long enough and the flesh yields sharp, grassy oil that slicks the mouth. Mixed with crushed almonds, it becomes a paste that feels almost decadent. You share a few bites with the silent archer beside you, a wiry Briton who claims he once shot a crow out of the sky at dusk, and he hands you a single date in return. This tiny barter is a reminder that survival here runs on mutual generosity as much as on swords. Toward evening, clouds gather, mercifully dulling the sun. But mercy is fleeting. A wind scours the plain, kicking grit into eyes and nostrils. Cloaks whip. The chaplain tries to recite Vespers, but ends up swallowing half the storm. You lean into the gale, shield your face, and think of home. Of bread fresh from a real oven, of cool cider, of sleeping without one ear tuned to the clang of alarm bells. Then thunder rolls. Rain follows in fierce, slanted needles. Helmets ring like drums. The earth turns to sludge, and each boot sinks an inch deeper than the last. Yet the column presses onward. Stopping means tents, and tents mean wet wool that will still be wet tomorrow. Better to reach higher ground. Night falls abruptly, as if someone snuffed the sky's lamp. Torches bloom along the march like fiery flowers, swaying with each gust. Finally, the order is given: make camp. Men scatter, dropping gear with groans. Fires crackle and lentil cauldrons reappear. Someone found a handful of wild onions. They hiss in the pot, promising flavor. You carve a niche between a barrel and a clump of thorny shrubs, unroll a blanket stiff with sweat salt, and collapse. Dinner is a wooden bowl of pork-flecked stew, gulped so fast it scalds the tongue. You chase it with wine, thin, sour, but safer than water, and suck on 2 figs for dessert. Around the nearest fire, tales start, of Saracen ambushes, of saints appearing in dreams, of a German knight who claims angels straighten his sword each dawn. The stories weave with the smoke, drifting upward in thin ribbons until stars snag them. Before sleep, you inventory tomorrow's rations. 3 hardtack tiles, a palmful of almonds, 1 strip of pork, and a precious half-dozen figs. Not lavish, but enough. You tuck the pouch under your cloak. Thieves prowl even among the God-fearing, and stretch out. Chainmail makes a terrible mattress, yet exhaustion is a better sedative than any apothecary could brew. Across the camp, a priest hums a hymn, low and steady. The melody mingles with the night insects, with the distant clunk of armor being removed, with a muffled sob from some boy who misses his mother. You stare at the sky and realize the Milky Way looks like spilled flour, the same flour that became the hardtack trying to crack your teeth. Cosmic and mundane, side by side. That's the crusade in a nutshell. Sleep comes fitfully. Dreams of endless roads morph into nightmares of empty satchels. You jolt awake when the watch changes, flames throwing jumpy shadows across leather tents. In the dark, someone gnaws on something with grim determination. Maybe a fig, maybe a sliver of stolen pork. You close your eyes again, clutching your pouch tighter. At first light, trumpets snap you upright. Another day, another 20 miles. Your tongue feels like parchment. You break the fast with almonds and half a fig, tiny bursts of energy that have to last until midday. While lacing your boots, you overhear veterans discussing a ruined fort ahead where travelers sometimes trade for goat cheese. The thought of creamy saltiness jolts your appetite. But trade requires something valuable, and most of what you own is sweat. The march resumes. The 5 foods perform their daily miracle. They keep muscle and bone obeying orders. They're monotonous, yes, but predictability is its own comfort when everything else, weather, enemies, even one's own commander, can turn hostile without warning. Between bites, you mark the subtle hierarchy of rations. Nobles munch more pork, foot soldiers more hardtack. Camp followers often survive on diluted lentil broth. Food is power and privilege, even out here on the edge of Christendom. By noon, the fort appears. Crumbling walls, sun-bleached banners, and a rowdy knot of traders hawking wares. The commander allows a brief market. You haggle 2 figs for a fist-sized hunk of goat cheese speckled with thyme. When you bite it, your taste buds erupt in shocked applause. Fresh dairy after weeks of salt feels like sin. You wolf half of it, tuck the rest away, and feel an embarrassing swell of happiness. A tiny victory, but victories stack like stones, building morale as solid as any castle. As afternoon drags, heat returns, heavier than chainmail. The cheese sits warmly in your gut, fueling muscles but also attracting thirst. Rivulets of sweat carve paths down dusty cheeks. The road twists through vineyards long abandoned to war. Shriveled grapes hang like forgotten jewels. Some men stuff pockets with them, whispering plans to ferment a flask of rough wine at the next halt. You pass because you've learned the danger of excess weight. Every ounce counts by mile 15. Late day, the sky bruises purple. The column ascends a ridge carpeted in wild lavender. The scent mingles with sweat and horse manure, creating a strangely soothing perfume. Nearby, a knight recites psalms between sips of wine, while his squire dreams of roast chicken he'll never taste.
You nibble hardtack soaked in that same wine and watch the sun glaze a distant river gold. For a moment, crusade life feels almost poetic, until a fly dives into your cup, drowning heroically.
Camp again. Fires bloom once more. Someone bartered for saffron and sprinkles a few threads into the lentil pot. The stew turns ochre, smelling exotic, almost royal. You line up, bowl in hand, stomach grumbling like a besieged fort. The first spoonful is heavenly. The second reminds you of home kitchens. You nearly cry, but blame the smoke. That night, rumors spread. Tomorrow, the host may encounter enemy scouts. Every man checks weapons, relaces mail, and, most crucial, counts rations. Battle needs energy. Pork strips get divided into smaller squares. Almonds rationed to 3 per dawn. Figs saved for morale boosts. Hardtack, indestructible, unlovable, remains abundant. You chip a piece off and tap it against your helm. It rings like iron. As stars wheel overhead, you drift into uneasy sleep, dreaming of saffron rivers and almond trees heavy with bread-shaped fruit. You wake before dawn, heart pounding, unsure if you heard a trumpet or just the echo of your own pulse. The crusade has that effect. You never truly rest, only pause. The first light cracks open the sky like an overeager rooster, spilling pale gold on armor that was never meant to shine, only to not rust faster than you can pray. You shove the goat cheese remnant from last night deeper into your satchel, because a sniff of fresh dairy in the pre-dawn chill will summon every camp dog within 3 counties. A quick inventory: 3 almonds, half a strip of pork, a pair of hardtack tiles, 4 dried figs, one of which now sports suspicious bite marks. The thief? Likely a rat, nimble enough to squeeze through chain links while you slept. The crusade? Where even rodents tithe your rations. Form up begins with barked commands and the shuffle of 1,000 reluctant feet. Shields clack down the line like falling dominoes, followed by the heavy sigh of bodies reconciling with another day under chainmail. You choke down half a fig for pre-breakfast sugar, then wedge the hardtack between molars, letting it soak in spit as the host lurches forward. It tastes of flour and defiance, mostly defiance. An hour in, the column approaches a narrow pass flanked by crumbling rock. The captain orders silence. These ravines are ambush favorites. Immediately, every squeak of leather, every clink of mail seems deafening. You're suddenly hyper-aware of the pork strip dangling from your satchel, announcing your presence to any bandit with a nose. You tighten the knot, grip your spear, and focus on your breath, each exhale clouding in the cool shadow of the cliffs. A buzz of tension replaces breakfast hunger. Adrenaline is calorie-dense, after all. Halfway through the pass, a boulder dislodges upslope. It tumbles with theatrical timing, crashing to the path ahead and exploding into shards. Panic ripples. Archers notch instinctively. Infantry raise shields. But no arrows follow. It was just gravity's bad mood, yet hearts gallop like warhorses. When the line starts moving again, you realize your hardtack tile has snapped in 2 from clenching your jaw. Congratulations! Breakfast is now a crumb pancake. The gorge spits you onto a plateau where sunlight returns with a vengeance. Helmets become cauldrons, water skins shrink alarmingly, and tongues roughen like parchment left near a forge. The water ration is brutal. about 2 swallows every hour. Veterans advise chewing almonds slowly between sips. The oil tricks the mouth into feeling moister than it is. You comply, swirling the nut fragment around your gums like wine at a royal tasting. It works, barely. Mid-morning, the column passes a shrine, just a stone niche with a weather-worn icon and a rusted lantern. Superstition outweighs fatigue. Everyone, from knight to mule driver, crosses themselves or mutters personal prayers. Some drop coins, others dried herbs. You place a single almond on the ledge, a tiny bribe for whatever guardian spirit might be clocking overtime in this wasteland. Then you march on, palms tingling with mild hope. Soon, the terrain slopes downward toward a patchwork of wheat stubble and abandoned orchards. Rumor spreads of an unguarded mill near a creek. A scout's banner flashes. Halt and scavenge within sight barriers. Instantly, disciplined lines dissolve into opportunistic clusters. You team up with 2 Breton spearmen and a timid squire. The orchard's gnarled branches still cradle shriveled apples, leather-skinned but surprisingly juicy once bitten. Everyone pockets as many as cloth can carry. You wedge 6 under your belt like plump grenades. At the creek, water skins dunk beneath frothy surface. You drink too quickly and nearly retch on the chill. Lesson: when your throat feels like linen, water punches like wine. You settle for rinsing the pork strip, washing off excess brine. It now tastes, dare you say, pleasant. A luxury feast if judged by Crusader Yelp reviews. But paradise has a checkout time. Horn blasts recall scavengers. Some return lugging illicit sacks of grain, others guilty-eyed with hen feathers poking from tunics. The commander confiscates stolen livestock, but turns a blind eye to fruit. Morale matters. Lines reform, heavier now with orchard loot. Every step squashes an apple core inside someone's boot. 1,000 tiny cider presses on the move. Around noon, heat risks frying brains in helmets, so lunch break is forced. You huddle under a stunted olive for flickering shade, slice your rinsed pork into slivers, and stew them in a dented tin with creek water, apple chunks, and crumbled hardtack. Stone Age porridge. When it thickens, you pass the tin around. The Breton spearman christens it Pilgrim Stew. Everyone laughs, mouths full. The squire offers a prayer of thanks that sounds suspiciously like he's flirting with the stew itself. Digesting means loosening belts, danger in marching gear, so the captain signals an early start to beat afternoon lethargy. The road becomes a hazy ribbon, vision blurred by heat mirages. You suck on apple seeds for moisture. Did our 5 core foods just unofficially expand to 6? Maybe? The Crusades menu evolves 1 orchard at a time. Late afternoon delivers a new challenge. A bridge destroyed by retreating locals. Engineers scramble. They lash barrels into pontoons, lay planks, and bark for volunteers to test the makeshift span. The reward? First dibs at evening rations. You step forward, extra goat cheese dreams still vivid. Crossing feels like tiptoeing on drunk piano keys. Water snarls beneath. Your satchel swings dangerously, but you make it, earning applause and 1 thin wedge of Commander's cheese. Victory never tasted so lactic. On the far bank, terrain morphs into marshy badlands. Mosquitoes swarm like arrows loosed by invisible archers. You accept that the new protein source is insect.
Pork and fig paste loses charm when you're swatting constant whines at your ears. Some men smear mud on exposed skin, a primitive repellent that smells like fertilizer but works. You slather on a layer, now resembling a clay statue marching off its pedestal. The crusade dehumanizes, literally. Camp rises on a turf ridge safe from marsh fog. Fires spark earlier, damp wood hisses. Dinner is lentils again, this time simmered with apple peel and the cheese wedge your bridge bravery earned. You trade 2 figs for a pinch of pepper from a spice-hoarding knight's valet. The resulting stew tastes like a letter from home. You savor each spoonful, eyes closed, ignoring the swamp's chorus. Night watch rotates. You draw second shift, midnight to second cockcrow. The sky above the marsh is a black quilt stitched with stars, bright enough to read by if you had reading skills. Instead, you pace perimeter, chewing hardtack shards to stay awake. The clamor of frogs and distant wolves composes a lullaby you must resist. You tighten cloak edges, check the horizon for suspicious flickers. Nothing but darkness, terrifying and comforting all at once. At shift's end, you collapse onto your blanket. Dreams come hard and fast, marching bread loaves, talking apples who claim they're saints, rats wearing helmets carved from almond shells. When someone shakes you awake for dawn muster, mouth tastes of mud and leftover nightmares. Breakfast is quick. Almonds and the last half fig. They traveled far, these figs, and you honor them like fallen comrades. You discover the rat thief indeed gnawed your pork pouch strap. You knot it with twine and vow if you catch that rodent, he's stew. Call to march pierces reflection. Boots tramp south into hills rumored to shelter raiders. The captain's briefing. Speed increases. Rations tighten. Vigilance absolute. 5 foods must now stretch to feed fear. By mid-morning, hooves drum behind. You spin, spear ready. But it's just a courier riding hard. Message from Allied forces. The news is mixed. Enemy movements ahead, but also possible resupply convoy near a coastal port 3 days distant. 3 days on dwindling stores tests both stomach and soul. Veterans spit, mutter slivers of prayers, and adjust belts a much tighter. You share a look with the Breton spearman, something between dread and determination. You both split an almond in silent pact. Road rises, twisting through cedar forests. Shade is merciful, air fragrant. Spirits lift, and someone at the rear starts humming the shrine melody from yesterday. Soon, the whole column joins, voices weaving through branches. Even the horses sway in rhythm. Food might fuel muscle, but song, it seems, feeds something deeper. Around a bend, a creekside meadow beckons, ripe with wild mint. Foragers scatter before permission. You gather sticky bundles, inhaling sharp perfume. Mint leaves tucked in mouth trick the brain. Look, moisture. You also crush some to rub on skin. Mosquitoes hate VIP lunches. The mint becomes an honorary 6th ration, green hope in leaf form. Afternoon burns again. How many times can a single sun feel hotter? You swear this star has vendetta. Hardtack dust sticks to sweat, forming paste on lips. A night collapses. Armor removed reveals heat blisters. Water skins pass,
Bless the Mint Spring Creek earlier. The pace slows. Survival outranks schedule. Even commanders chew mint like cud.
Yet adversity births camaraderie. The squire, once timid, now cracks jokes about opening a tavern called the Weevil and Hardtack when all this ends. Laughter lifts feet. You imagine its sign, a weevil in chainmail raising a mug of lentil ale. Absurdity tastes sweeter than figs.
As sun slumps west, scouts signal abandoned village ahead. Houses caved, wells dry, but stone bakery still stands. Hope surges, bread. Inside, oven bricks still warm. Someone passed recently. You salvage charred loaves almost edible. The aroma drives men feral. Commanders ration, 1 chunk per 5 soldiers. You nibble coarse crumb, yeast dead but heavenly soft compared to hardtack. You vow to erect a statue to bakers if you survive.
Camp forms in courtyard. Fires prohibited, enemy proximity. Dinner is cold bread, mint, and last pork shreds. The combination surprises. Salty meat, fresh green, smoky crumb, a banquet of contrasts. You sleep sitting, back to wall, spear across knees. No dreams, only darkness, thick as bread crust.
Dawn trumpet again, merciless routine. Rations now alarming, 1 almond, sliver of bread, handful of mint. Figs gone, lentils spent, pork ghost. Yet you rise. Hunger sharpens focus, road calls. And so day 3 of our punishing pilgrimage begins, guided by guts, grit, and whatever scraps survive the pouch. Sunrise tears open the sky with a blade of molten orange, and instantly every hammered iron helmet in the column starts to simmer like a blacksmith's cauldron. You've barely scraped the sleep grit from your eyes before the trumpets bray their rude reveille, corralling men, mules, and half-collapsed tents into motion. Somewhere a veteran grumbles that if Gabriel's horn on Judgment Day sounds anything like Crusader wake-up, nobody's making it to heaven rested. You wrap what's left of your cloak tight against the chilly dawn. Last night's cold baked bread still a chewy lump in your gut, and fall in.
First crisis: water. Yesterday's feast of marsh mosquitoes has faded, but the thirst they triggered lingers. Canteens now glug thin as empty coin purses. The captains promise a river crossing by midday, yet the map in your head has rivers relocating whenever they please. You compensate with the oldest trick in the book, mint leaves again, chewed to paste, fooling your tongue into believing moisture still exists. The flavor is sharp, bordering on medicinal, but it keeps morale flickering.
Boots strike the road in staccato misery. Gravel shifts, iron rings, and the marching song of the morning is less hymn, more coughing lament. The Breton spearman, let's call him Arnaud, since comrades ought to have names, leans close. Heard the quartermaster found a beehive in that ruined village after dark, he says, conspiratorial. A jar of raw honey tucked under his arm now, the lucky slug. Your stomach growls so loudly a nearby knight flinches. Honey, concentrated sugar, liquid gold, instant salvation. You vow to track that jar like a pilgrim to a relic.
A mile further, the column halts without warning. Word passes back. Bridge scouts have spotted movement across the valley. Enemy? Maybe. Wolves? Equally likely. You seize the pause to inventory your meager satchel again. 1/4 loaf of ancient bread, 3 almonds hiding like monks in a crypt, 2 apple cores, you haven't the heart to toss them, and a single ragged mint sprig. Luxury. Suddenly, shouts up front. The line compresses, men jostle. You raise on tiptoe, chainmail clicking, and glimpse why. A ragtag band of local peasants, dirty, thin, waving bundles of herbs like surrender flags, have approached the vanguard. They carry baskets brimming with purple figs, green cucumbers, and something miraculous, round sheep milk cheeses tied in cloth. Negotiations spark. Crusaders may deny a Saracen quarter, but an impromptu produce market? Divine gift. In minutes, coins, arrowheads, and even a polished buckle trade hands. You pool resources with Arnaud and the squire, offering a spare knife, blade notched but still keen, in exchange for a softball-sized cheese and a clutch of cucumbers cool from morning dew. The cheese aroma alone revives your soul. You carve wedges with the discipline of a surgeon, handing slivers to your little consortium. The texture is creamy, tangy, studded with grains of sea salt that burst like fireworks on the tongue. Gone too soon, but its calcium spark lingers in your bones. The cucumbers vanish next, watery crunch surging through tired muscles like a fresh stream. For a moment, you remember what it feels like to be fully alive. The column lurches onward, bellies marginally less hollow. Yet comfort births complacency, and complacency is punished swiftly. Mid-march, a scream knifes through dust. An arrow, black-fletched, hisses overhead and lodges in a shield a dozen paces up. Ambush. Instinct eclipses hunger. Shields lock, spears present, archers scramble to vantage points. You duck behind a cart axle, adrenaline drowning the taste of cheese. Out of the scrub crest a handful of horsemen, faces veiled, bows singing. Their mounts weave, loosing arrows before wheeling back into thorny cover. A teasing strike, not full assault, likely testing the column's mettle. Even so, 2 crusaders lie moaning, thigh and shoulder pierced. Chirurgeons rush. You notice one injury is less arrow, more grazing scratch, but the victim still goes white, muttering of poison. Fear is its own toxin. You fetch your last mint sprig, crush it under his nose. The sharp scent lassos his galloping panic. He nods thanks, squeezes your wrist, and resumes breathing like a man, not a rabbit. Captains decide. Speed up, stay tight, no more stray foraging. The incidental feast you just scored becomes legend the moment it's forbidden fruit. Every stomach in earshot groans in solidarity. Ahead looms a ribbon of trees marking the promised river. You pray it's real, not Mirage Mark III. Approach reveals water glittering, a genuine, wide artery slicing the plain. Joy erupts. Horses plunge knee-deep. Men drop helmets and dunk their entire heads. Rules or not, thirst commands. You kneel, fill your skin, splash face and neck, then drink long, ignoring gritty undertones. It tastes of silt and salvation. On the bank, the quartermaster appears wearing a grin slicker than oiled leather, clutching that rumored honey jar. Lines form instantly, coins flash. He charges scandalous sums for spoonfuls. You foot 0 silver, so you improvise, offer your apple cores. The quartermaster laughs until you point out the fermentation smell. Apple core yeast, perfect for mead brewing. His eyes light, trade accepted. You walk away with 2 fingers worth of honey spread on a shard of bread, sticky sunshine dribbling down your wrist. 1 bite, pure amber warmth, a reminder of orchards and buzzing summer. The second bite triggers a frenzy of swallowing crusaders mobbing to buy. You slink away before riots start. Afternoon, road hugs the river, cooler, greener. Sweet water and honey pulses through veins. Conversation picks up. Arnaud tells of his village fete where dancers weave garlands while drinking almond milk mixed with fig wine. Your 5 foods transformed into festival luxury. The squire counters with rumor that the holy city streets are paved with marzipan. Everyone laughs at the impossibility, laughter lubricated by sugar high. Toward evening, low hills throw shadows like cloaks. You pass olive groves blackened by last year's fires, gnarled branches stark against amber sky. Here, scouts warn, bandits scavenge charred orchards for survivors' valuables. The column closes again, torches readied though daylight lingers. Hunger pricks anew, honey rush fades fast. You gnaw bread crust, now subtly sweetened. It sticks in molars, but you welcome the chew. It keeps fear muscles busy. Camp selection tonight is different. Captains occupy a half-ruined outpost on a bluff, walls knee-high, offering vantage. Fires must stay low. Dinner comes from central cauldron, lentils again, colored by the last pinch of saffron somebody smuggled in, a golden swirl in brown mush. The taste? Comfortingly repetitive. You enhance yours with a drop of river water honey squeezed from the bread wrap. The blend of earth and nectar is oddly poetic, like monks writing psalms in a tavern. After bowls scrape clean, a troubadour unpacks a battered lute. Strings stretch, notes rising into dusk. He sings of rivers of milk and cities where bread falls like snow. Men close eyes, bodies swaying. Song coaxes out hidden rations. A communal pot appears, ladled from pockets. Half a cucumber, a child-sized cheese nub, several almonds, and, shockingly, 1 preserved lemon from a night's secret stash. They simmer together, invented cuisine dubbed Pilgrim's Mercy. You sip 1 spoonful, sweet, sour, salty. It tastes like survival, spiced with hope. Night watch again. This time, your 3rd shift, deep graveyard hour. Stars pulse. Wind whistles through burned olive limbs, sounding like spirits rattling chains. You pace the low wall, spear balanced, humming the troubadour's tune. Suddenly, rustle beyond light. You freeze, heart pulsing in ears. Silhouette appears, a gaunt dog sniffing for scraps. You exhale, toss it a crust. It devours, then melts into night, ghost satisfied. Dawn creeps, violet then rose. Trumpet call, your lullaby of pain, commands the march anew. Inventories shrink to bleakness. 1 almond, half-spoon honey, a sliver of cheese rind softer than hope. Yet feet climb into boots, packs heft, and column snakes from skeleton fort, banners catching sunrise. Morning passes in relative peace until a smell.
carrion, unmistakable wafts. Ahead, a toppled supply wagon litters road, its guards slain. Buzzing flies form dark clouds. Looters already stripped valuables, but scatter at approach. Captains order salvage. Sacks of barley kernels, cracked yet edible, plus 2 intact wheels of dried goat cheese, hard as masonry. This bounty could stretch rations days. But barley must be boiled, and there's no time to halt. Quartermaster divides kernels into raw march pouches. You sample a few. Chalky, but crunchable. Spitting hulls, you realize, congratulations, your diet now includes raw barley. Still, calories triumph taste. High noon scorches again. Marchers chew barley non-stop, creating chorus of grinding teeth. Combined with yesterday's honey, it forms primitive energy bites in the cheek, a culinary miracle if you squint. You swig river water to soften the grain. It swells in belly, sating hunger temporarily. Clouds gather, mercy shade, and with them thunder. Rain begins, fat drops sizzling on hot helmets. Relief morphs to annoyance when path turns to slurry. Mud suction threatens to claim boots. Apple seeds sprout spontaneously in muck. Life moves quick here. Evening arrives at last. The host reaches a hilltop chapel long abandoned, roof half collapsed, but walls intact enough to shelter fires. Captains declare rest day tomorrow. Repairs, prayers, digestion. Cheers ripple. You envision your first brew of barley porridge since Europe. Immediate task, clean water. Buckets deployed, roof runoff collected. The squire, inventive, rigs a stone-lined pit as brewpot. You volunteer barley, Arno tosses cheese shards. Someone offers wild thyme. Cauldron bubbles, scent astonishing. You whisper grace, for flavors, for this rare pause. After supper, a local hermit appears from chapel crypt, thin and bright-eyed. In broken Latin, he gifts a jar of fermented honey, mead thicker than river mud, but sweet as salvation. Laughter erupts, mugs pass. Even commanders sip. Discipline relaxes under amber stars. Music, laughter, the hum of bees still echoing from honey. The night blooms. Before turning in, you slip outside. The sky is a black bowl glittering. Inside your pouch lies tomorrow's breakfast: barley scrap, almond, mint leaf. Not feast, but promise. You breathe the night air heavy with thyme smoke and mead, and feel, dare you think it, content. Flint blue dawn hovers above the chapel ruins when the captains spring their surprise. Break camp early, strike south across those dead olive hills, and reach the fortified river ford before dusk, or risk being trapped on the open plain when the Emmer's scouts rally for a larger strike. Nobody complains aloud. The groans remain private, swallowed with the last spoonful of barley thyme porridge, but every set of shoulders sinks half an inch. You tighten the straps on your mail, fingers sticky with the ghost of last night's mead, and glance at Arnaud. He's already chewing raw mint like a warhorse gnawing its bit. The column fans out, boots squelching over rain-softened earth. Each footfall releases the smell of wet ash from yesterday's torches, proof of the first comfort fire in weeks. That memory warms nobody long. Within a mile, the wind off the scorched groves sharpens, nipping ears.
reminding you why every oaths before battle ceremony you've witnessed begins by cursing cold fingers. Knights brag about steel nerves. Squires know it's frozen joints they fear more. As sun climbs, captains push the pace. Mud sucks at boots. Several men lose footwear entirely, hop back to wrestle it free, and earn a flurry of shouted insults for delaying the host. You haul one sapper to his feet, sacrificing precious momentum, but he repays you by sharing a wedge of the goat cheese rescued from yesterday's wrecked wagon. It's hard and salty, but the fat slides into your blood like blacksmith's oil through worn hinges. Energy hums. By mid-morning, the hills steepen, cut with gullies that funnel wind like bellows. Up front, the standard-bearers slow and begin scanning ridgelines. You strain for movement and finally spot it. A narrow banner, green silk embroidered with crescents, bobbing against stone outcrops. Enemy scouts, for certain. The captains cluster, debate, then issue new instructions. Staggered formation, shields on the outside, archers knocked and ready. The column compresses like a snake tightening before strike. That's when the knights begin their vile oaths. It starts subtle, Sir Lambert spitting into his palm and vowing, by the spilled guts of Judas, never to sheathe his sword until it drinks Saracen blood. Then Sir Judah Cale answers louder, promising to feed the devil himself with his enemy's eyeballs roasted on a spit. Each knight tries to outdo the last, piling obscenity upon sacrilege as though filth itself were armor. Squires, by custom, must echo the sentiments, but cannot violate church law too boldly. So you and Arnaud settle for muttering dire threats to enemy horses' mothers and pledging to suck marrow from villain bones. It feels ridiculous, juvenile even, but tradition binds. Hurl foul words into the waiting sky, lest fear worm into your lungs first. The hermit from the chapel falls in beside the baggage mules. He's apparently joined the march, thin sandals slapping mud. With a voice like dry leaves, he informs anyone listening that coarse oaths placate a local desert djinn known to haunt soldiers' livers. Feed her with filth, and she won't steal your courage. Superstition mingles with strategy out here, inseparable. Near noon, the column tops a ridge and drops jaws in unison. Below, a wide valley yawns, a checkerboard of parched fields stitched by a pale thread of road. But campfires pepper the far side, tiny gray smudges rising. Enemy detachment, bigger than scouts. Captains waste no time. We must skirt west, avoid direct valley crossing, sprint instead for a ruined aqueduct rumored to bridge cliffs 2 leagues on. Speed becomes gospel. The sun now blazes. Armor grows kiln hot. Knights splash river water on helmets, hiss like forge irons. You suck the last sweetness from the cheese rind before flinging it to the hermit's dog. Yes, the same mongrel has followed, tail wagging, eyes too wise. Good omen, maybe. Down the ridge, the mud gives way to cracked clay. March quickens, but so does thirst. The mules pant, tongues lolling, while behind them, cartwheels shriek a nursery of metal babies. The quartermaster's honey jar rattles in a lockbox. Rumor says he'll auction the final spoon tonight. Desperation inflates its price with each dusty mile. Late afternoon haze veils the sun when you finally reach the aqueduct. What once arched nobly across canyon now resembles a row of tombstones. Half the spans collapsed, rubble carpeting the gorge bottom. But miracles happen. One narrow section still stands, maybe 50 paces across, scaffolded long ago by some forgotten engineer with oak beams driven into rock. The captains decide. Cross single file before the enemy flanking force crests the valley. Orders bark. Knights dismount, leading chargers up slick ramp, hooves striking ancient stones that flake under weight. Squires follow, juggling packs, shields, and nerves. You grip the guide rope, just a frayed hemp line tied to decaying pillars, and inch forward. Wind whistles through gaps, pulling at cloaks. Far below, the canyon floor writhes with thornbush and bones of livestock long dead. One faltering step, and you'd join them. Mid-span, a tremor ripples the structure. Wooden frame groans, dust erupts from mortar. Someone behind curses the Virgin in ways that would earn confession for a century. Your heartbeat booms louder than drums, but feet keep sliding. At the far end, a sergeant claps each crosser's shoulder and shoves them onto solid ground. Not comforting, but effective. When your turn comes, his grip feels like being yanked back into a womb of safety. Arnaud emerges seconds later, blows out a theatrical sigh, and claims he'll never cross another bridge sober. The last carts make it over just as distant horns blare behind, enemy vanguard appearing at ridgetop like ants on a loaf. Archers loose a token volley, arrows clatter harmlessly off stone. Captains order a demolition. Sappers hack ropes, jam wedges, and light oil-soaked rags. You help drag the quartermaster's empty grain cart to edge as makeshift battering ram, then leap clear. Impact shears a support beam, the bridge shudders. Flames lick uprights, and with a sigh grander than any knight's oath, the central span collapses, sending plumes of dust skyward. Cheers erupt. Pursuit will take hours to reroute. Evening descends faster than relief settles. Camp forms atop a limestone shelf dotted with scrub. Fires permitted again, enemy distant and daylight gone. You volunteer to fetch water from a trickling spring, flagged by the hermit. The path winds through thorn clusters heavy with late berries. Arnaud joins, pockets bulging with barley kernels for roasting. At the spring, water proves tannic but drinkable. You fill skins, then notice onion-sized bulbs sprouting near the bank, wild garlic. You harvest a fistful, scent pungent enough to mask any field latrine. Tonight's stew just leveled up. Back at camp, cooks toss barley, garlic slices, crumbled goat cheese, and last spoon of honey into one pot. The alchemy is ridiculous. Savory, sweet, tangy swirl hitting weary palates like choir song. Even the knights drop chivalric facades to beg ladle refills. One lanky archer promises to tattoo the recipe on his forearm if he survives. Full bellies embolden tongues. Oaths evolve from vile threats to burlesque boasts. Sir Lambert vows to kick open Jerusalem's gate with nothing but a chamber pot helmet. Sir Judicale swears he'll baptize every heathen sword in his own urine. Laughter shakes canvas. Yet between guffaws, you glimpse fear behind eyes. Brash words plaster cracks. As torches burn low, captains convene. Tomorrow, they proclaim, we engage.
Not full-scale assault, but skirmish to seize high ground before the enemy does. Dawn muster at first light, armor must gleam, bows waxed, courage steeled. Lights out. You roll into cloak, stomach finally content. But sleep dodges. In its place, images. Canyon drop, enemy horns, bridge collapsing. And beneath that gnawing knowledge, oaths are cheap wax compared to the iron price of dawn. You whisper a quiet promise of your own, no obscenity required. Keep our nod alive, come what may, and maybe snatch another taste of that barley honey miracle. The night wind ruffles tent flap. Stars wheel. Somewhere, the hermit hums a hymn older than Rome. And you, half dreaming already, feel the story's road stretching ahead. 2 meals, a battle, and, if fortune smiles, a reason to swear cleaner oaths next time. The black horizon cracks with peach-gray light just as the trumpets snarl you awake, and every promise you made beneath the stars to keep our nod breathing, to taste one more spoon of stew, comes due at once. No gentle stretch, no pilgrim's dawn hymn. Instead, your first task is wrenching half-frozen mail over sweat-stiff linen while the ground still trembles from distant drumbeats. Enemy campfires, you learn, never truly went out. They've shifted east, hugging the riverbank we failed to cross yesterday, and their smoke now creeps through the gullies like search hounds sniffing for lost courage. Arnaud appears, helm askew, breath fogging. "We overslept a miracle," he mutters, thrusting a crust of barley loaf into your hand. It's hard as slate, but chewing keeps your jaw from chattering. Around you, squires cinch girths, archers string bows, and the hermit with the sandaled feet raises a trembling palm to the waking sun, mumbling that all steel is merely condensed light. Fine poetry, if it would sharpen blades. You tie his tattered icon of St. Minas to your belt anyway. Can't hurt. Captains lay out the gamble. Seize the ridgeline north of the aqueduct ruins before midday. Hold it until sunset so siege wagons can haul artillery into place. Do it, and tomorrow we dictate terms. Fail, and we leave bones in the gullies. Simple math, but every man knows the cost is paid one heartbeat at a time. The ridge itself, skinny as a knife spine, littered with rubble and bristling with enemy stakes, makes the task feel like charging up a dragon's back. Knights mount, hooves punch frost. Squires fall in behind shield wall like scales on a serpent. You shoulder a fresh spear, its shaft smelling of new-cut beech, and feel something between dread and elation rise in your throat. There is no vile oath now, only silence, sliced by bootfall and the distant gull laughter of crows. The ascent begins subtle, an incline you could sleepwalk, but soon the soil turns to fractured slate that slides under boots. Archers scramble ahead, planting stakes from which to launch covering fire. Each thud of mallet echoes downslope. Beyond the crest, enemy horns bleat, and then first arrows hiss past, whipping air from cheeks. One shaft skewers Sir Lambert's horse through the neck. The beast rears wild, dragging him before collapsing in a wet crunch. His squire screams, tries to drag armored bulk aside, and for one ugly minute you believe the line will break from grief. But Sir Judical roars a curse so foul the sky itself might blush, wrenching focus back to forward momentum. Arnaud and you reach a tumbled column, marble from some Roman ghost of empire, and take shelter long enough to drink breath. The ridge summit is maybe 200 paces, but feels another continent. Thunder cracks behind. Siege wagon wheels have struck stone, sparking. You're ordered to clear a path, dislodge boulders, hack stakes, create a goat trail wide enough for the lumbering giants. It's pickaxe music, clang, grunt, splinter, while arrows skitter like angry crickets overhead. Enemy infantry appears, light shields, curved swords, eyes painted with coal, rushing down the spine to meet you before your knights gain footing. First clash is brutal, no room for flourish. You thrust low, spearhead catching a calf. Man goes down, you kick him away before his blood can grease the rock beneath your boots. Arnaud parries a slash that would have gelded a mule, then smashes pommel into his foe's teeth. There's a ringing in your skull that might be fear or a hymn, no telling. Somewhere left, the hermit stands amid chaos, staff raised, chanting. Wind gusts hard as if obeying him, hurling grit into enemy eyes. Or maybe that's coincidence. In battle, truth and miracle blur. Knights finally surge past, great waterfall of steel. Sir Judicael leaps over the hermit, impales a swordsman, and shouts something about urine baptism come due. You almost laugh. Almost. With front ranks locked, captains wave for sappers. Thick-armed men haul cages of clay pot grenades, pitch, sulfur, lamp oil. Your job, ferry them up and toss beyond shield walls to burn the ground clear. You run relay, ceramic warm against chest, praying it doesn't shatter early. First lob sails, lands amid dried thorn brush, and explodes into witchfire. Screams follow, carried off by wind. The ridgetop clears 5 heartbeats later. You'd think victory smells like rosemary and trumpets. In truth, it reeks of burning hair and the copper tang of opened veins. But the summit is ours, at least for now. Knights form crescent line, while squires dig hasty trenches. Archers notch arrows dipped in resin, setting enemy hillside ablaze to discourage another rush. Behind, siege wagons lumber into position, great timber flatbeds carrying torsion engines the size of cottages. Crews swivel them like blind giants finding balance. Midday sun drags shadows east, but no rest. Enemy archers pepper the ridge, and each new catapult assembled becomes lightning rod for their anger. You spend 2 hours scuttling between stacks of slate, fetching water skins, patching shield straps, whispering half-remembered psalms over dying comrades. At one point, you and Arnaud crouch behind a toppled battlement chrismed with fresh guts, munching raw garlic bulbs to keep infection spirits at bay. He jokes the stench will make plague fleas faint. You manage a grin before ducking another shaft. Late afternoon, a lull. Both sides bleed fatigue. Captains allow rotation. Half the force rests in shallow depressions while the other mans defenses. You stretch on sun-warmed stone, eyelids heavier than chainmail, yet mind refuses to sleep. Instead, you watch clouds. One forms shape of a swan, omen of swift travel, some say. Another resembles a chalice spilled on its side. Bad sign? You decide omens are for commanders. Squires live minute to minute. When dusk burns the sky mauve, the enemy tries again. Trumpets blare, and silhouettes surge uphill under cover of rising smoke. this time carrying ladders, shouting prayers to their own fierce god. Your archers meet them with a hail. Flames bloom as pitch pots erupt like dying stars. Still, they climb. Ladders thunk against parapet stakes. You thrust spear down into a helmetless skull, feel it pierce jaw and exit palate, a grisly puppet jerking on wood. Another ladder tilts as siege wagon releases stone shot. Impact pulverizes 3 men and sends rungs snapping like old ribs. Sir Lambert, some saint must have kept him breathing earlier, drags himself atop fallen stones and, with ruined horse's dagger, carves open a climber's wrist until grip fails, ladder tipping, bodies screaming on way down. Battle thickens. Twilight renders friend and foe alike into smears of shadow. Torches flicker, cast leaping demons on rock walls. You lose sight of Arnaud for panicked moments, then find him retching near a broken standard, face splashed with something blacker than ink. Not his blood, he assures, though voice cracks. He wipes eyes, grabs a fresh spear, and charges back into fray before you can protest. This assault breaks too, partly the fire, partly raw exhaustion, and enemy retreats, leaving slope strewn with corpses. A cruel hush settles. Only moans and crackle of burning brush speak. You stagger to the hermit, who kneels beside fallen youth, hands pressed to boy's chest, chanting. The wound still gushes. Hermit's efforts fail. He looks up, eyes reflecting torchlight. "It is the hour," he whispers, "when vows rot or ripen." You don't fully grasp it, but nod anyway. Captains declare, ridge secured for night. No cheers. Victory tastes like ash after what you've seen. But practical concerns press, digging latrines, redistributing arrows, tending wounds. You fetch water again, now from a trickle turned rust red. Somewhere, a field surgeon saws through shattered tibia. The shriek carries across camp like an evil lullaby. Yet even here, comfort ekes in. One cook discovered a forgotten pouch of juniper berries. He tosses them into stew cauldrons with river snails and yesterday's leftover barley, claiming juniper fumes ward off malaria. The smell, piney, almost festive, drifts through camp and momentarily masks carnage. You and Arnaud slurp bowls while seated on a still warm catapult beam, backs to enemy darkness. For dessert, someone passes figs plucked from a lone tree clinging to cliff. Sweet, gritty, miraculous. Knights gather for prayer, more subdued than their ribald oaths. Sir Judicile, helmet off, hair matted with gore, asks forgiveness for every vile word spat earlier. Chaplain absolves them, but reminds, come dawn, they may need fresh ones. Sin cycles like moonlight, he says, and warfare is its tide. Moon climbs. Guards rotate. You draw second watch near the parapet, torch clutched, eyes burning but alert. The wind has shifted. It carries faint music. Enemy camp singing plain song, strangely similar to your own. Two armies lull themselves with the same melodies beneath different constellations. You wonder if across no man's land some other squire stands torched in hand, puzzling the same. Hours pass. Stars frost overhead. Memory of morning's oaths, boiled barley, collapsing bridge, all weave with smoke into dream threads tugging at consciousness. But you stay awake, because Arnaud sleeps behind you, and vows, clean or filthy, cannot protect a dozing friend from quiet blades. Toward dawn, flashes bloom on enemy side, signal fires, maybe preparation for another assault. Catapult crews stir, knights don helmets. The ridgeline will taste fresh misery soon. You whisper into the dark, "One more day, saints, that's all." Whether they hear is moot, you shoulder spear and brace. Red streak dawn cracks across the ridge, a heartbeat before the trumpets scream. No time to rub sleep from lashes, no time even to lie about how deeply you prayed. Steel already moans as knights lever themselves upright, joints grinding like old gates. A chill sits heavy in your cloak, but the horizon glows the color of furnace iron, promising heat, blood, or both. You stamp life into your feet while the captains braid news into orders. Scouts report 2 converging columns climbing the eastern spur, one of archers, lean and quick, another of shield wall spearmen advancing slow but inexorable, dragging ladders, bundles of reed, and worse, sledges stacked with pitch-soaked hay. Our flimsy ramparts will turn to lantern wicks if those sledges ignite. The siege engines we protected last night won't fire a single shot if flames crawl into their torsion bundles first. So the plan is savage and simple. Hit them before they can stage their pyre. Your section draws the task of flanking through a gash in the ridgeline locals call Devil's Mouth, a slot barely wide enough for 2 men abreast, its floor littered with shale that slices boots and patience. Great place for an ambush or a burial pit. Arnaud, face still blotched where enemy gore stained him yesterday, tosses you a wink that's more tremor than grin. "Saint Menas loves us," he says. "He's giving us all the hard parts, so nobody else gets jealous." You answer with a grunt, tucking the hermit's tiny icon deeper behind your gorget. Down we snake, 20 squires, 24 billmen, a handful of crossbowmen, and one knight we all secretly pray won't notice how loud his joints clank. Sun climbs. Sweat cuts trails through grime. Shale gnaws your soles. Midway into the ravine, the wind dies, and stink from yesterday's corpses trapped below rises. Sour meat, boiled leather, burnt hair. Someone gags. Someone else stamps a cloth soaked in garlic under his nose. You keep moving because stopping equals thinking, and thinking equals fear. Ahead, the slot kinks left, narrowing to arm span. Lieutenant Bertrand signals halt. Then a pair of scouts vanish around the bend. You count heartbeats, 100, 150, before they slip back, eyes wide. The enemy archers have chosen the very ledge we hoped to seize. They string bows, unaware we're here but moments from ready. Opportunity ripe or death certain? Bertrand whispers. On my mark, we rush, shields high. Crossbows fire into first row, billmen sweep the rest. No voice until steel meets bone. Arnaud taps your helmet twice, our old code for stay on my left. You answer with 3 taps, until sunrise ends. Then the lieutenant drops his fist, and the world lurches forward. The bend opens like a stage curtain, a ledge no wider than a tavern table, jammed with a score of archers whose surprise freezes arrows mid-draw. Your crossbowmen loose first. Quarrels thud into linen cuirasses, punch shoulders, rip bows from fingers. Screams ricochet against stone. You and Arnaud crash in next, spears thrusting low. A young enemy snaps at you with a knife. You parry with spear butt, then ram the point under his collarbone. He collapses without a sound, lips moving, perhaps in prayer or disbelief.
Chaos compresses time. You recall only fragments. Arnaud using the broken haft of his spear to sweep feet. Your own boot slipping on blood-washed shale. A crossbowman shouting, "Engineers, clear!" just before a pot of quicklime bursts at the ledge rim, coughing white dust into archers' faces. They claw eyes, stumble, tumble off the precipice by twos. In less than a chapter of breath, the ledge is ours. Alive bodies, 12 of us. Dead enemy, impossible to count, still falling. But victory has claws. From the far end of the ledge, where chalk stone drops sheer for 30 paces, you spot the larger column, spearmen hauling flaming hay sledges. They've seen the ledge captured and now angle to bypass, trudging toward the main wall. If they reach it, last night's toil burns to ash. Bertrand decides we're to cut them off by stealing their reeds and turning them into torches against their own baggage line. Madness born of necessity.
Cross the knife-edge crest, descend into the enemy's back, ignite their sledges before they push them uphill. That's the plan. You could teach a magpie to recite it, but living it proves another scripture. The crest is sky-slim, wind-skinned. One false step, and you join the bodies already littering the abyss. Bertrand leads. You follow, digging nails into rock for purchase. Arnaud murmurs a farmer's lullaby about wheat bending in wind, a trick to slow his breath. Halfway across, arrows streak. Some careless enemy archer spotted movement. You crouch, feel fletching whisper past ear. Bertrand hisses for speed.
The descent on the far side is an earthen chute, slick with dew and loose gravel. You slide, half-controlled, into a stand of dwarf pines that mask approach. Beyond them, the enemy column plods, men stooped under shields protecting flickering torchbearers who walk heads down, sputtering curses at the cold. There are more of them than of us, but they don't expect blades from behind.
Bertrand divides squads. Crossbowmen climb the pines to rain bolts. Billmen flank right to sever retreat. You and Arnaud lead the torch detail. The hermit appears again. How he reached here, saints know, and presses a clay vial into your palm. Dragon's breath, he whispers, a distillation of pine resin and brandy. Splash it, spark it, let night inhale. You tuck it inside tunic, wondering if faith and chemistry share one birthplace. Signal flies, a pebble striking trunk. Crossbows snap. 2 torchbearers topple, igniting reeds in their own fall. You sprint, spear discarded for a hatchet heavy enough to split sap. Arnaud beside you, swinging a billhook. The first spearman whirls too slow. Arnaud's hook hooks knee. Your hatchet rights his helmet into daylight. Fire leaps from spilled torch to hay. Smoke puffs like a conjurer's trick. You slam vial open with teeth, fling resin against nearest sledge, and shower sparks from flint. The effect is instantaneous. Flames roar emerald for a breath, then settle into hungry yellow. Panic ripples the column. Shields clatter, men stumble back, and in that scrum, crossbow bolts find unguarded backs. The enemy captain tries rallying. but a stray ember lands on his beard. He flails, drops helm, becomes silhouette of fire. Those still unburnt flee downslope, leaving sledges smoldering. You'd cheer if lungs weren't tarred with smoke. Bertrand orders withdrawal, quickly before counterstrike. Your band drags 2 unlit sledges up ridge to use later, a dragon's trophy. Reaching the summit again, you're met by cheers and coughs. Knights stride forward, clasping squires' shoulders, offering watered wine that tastes finer than any vintage. Catapults now stand unthreatened, their crews winding torsion arms with iron bats. When first boulder arcs over valley, the sound is church bells made of thunder. It smashes enemy barricade below, sending men scattering. More stones follow, until dusk receives them like vengeful meteors. Finally, captains blow retreat horns. Dig in, no further assaults until dawn. Fires are banked low to avoid night-bright silhouettes. You collapse beside Arnaud, behind a shield wall fashioned from broken ladder planks. His laugh is dry and rasping. If I live past tomorrow, he says, I'm swearing never to invent a new oath again. I'll recycle the old ones. Eco-friendly blasphemy. You wheeze agreement. Surgeons set up beneath a tattered tent. You help carry wounded. A crossbowman with bolts still lodged near spine. A billman missing 2 fingers. Bertrand himself with an arrow grazing his ribs. Bandages, honey salve, the saw. Screams join the wind. The hermit staggers among litters, sprinkling wine from shared cup, murmuring Latin fragments none of you remember learning. Yet eyelids of some wounded flutter open, settle, breathing steadies. Coincidence or grace? Nobody debates out loud. Night deepens. Distant enemy fires glow like constellations fallen to ground. A courier arrives with parchment. Reinforcements from the king's southern levy will crest the horizon at sunrise 2 days hence. Hold until then, it writes, signed with wax seal pressed hurriedly, smeared. Knights debate if news is blessing or curse. Can they survive 2 more dawns of this? Their argument rings louder than the night insects until Chaplain threatens them with silence penance. They grumble into agreement. Tomorrow morning they'll attempt a parley, using prisoners taken during ridge assault as bargaining hooks. You, Arnaud, and 3 other squires draw watch again. 3rd sequence, from midnight till 2nd cockcrow. Torches forbidden, so you squat in gloom, eyes adjusting to silver outlines. Somewhere below, an owl hoots. Somewhere else, a dying man calls for his mother and fades. Arnaud hums that wheat lullaby, quieter now, and you think of home, of blacksmith fires that smell of oak instead of charred hair, of bread that breaks soft, not stale. You think of what vile oath you might dare tomorrow to loan your fear another 24 hours of disguise. At last, a pale seam threads the eastern sky. False dawn, still hours from sun. But it's enough to silhouette motion on the lower slope. Shapes too disciplined for scavengers. Enemy preparing, perhaps, a stealth ascent to regain the ledge. You nudge Arnaud, who curses under breath. The hermit appears, again, leaning on staff carved with burn marks. They come, he whispers. Saint Menace says steel will sing before first real light. You ask if the saint offers advice. He taps your breastplate where his icon rests. Yes, Sing louder. You ready, spear? Roll shoulders, whisper to Arnaud. If they reach us, aim for knees. Steel hates waking early, too. He snorts. Wind shivers across the ridge, tasting of iron and unspoken promises as the night's gray ribbon finally frays into true dawn. No trumpets this time, only the ragged breathing of men clutching spears like rosaries, and the hollow hush before a chapel door swings open. Above you, the sky burns dilute pink, as though the sun is embarrassed by what it's about to reveal. The enemy shadows advancing upslope haven't spotted your half-moon of defenders yet. At 50 paces, they're still no more than silhouettes. Helm plumes bobbing, torches caged behind leather screens, a ladder crew hunched low to keep wood from clacking. It takes discipline to carry silence like that. You respect them for it, almost admire them. But admiration feels like a crack in your own shield, so you patch it with anger. They are the reason your hands won't stop trembling. They are why Arnaud has forgotten the color of wheat in daylight. They are the sob you heard crawl out of some hard man's throat before he realized it was his own. Lieutenant Bertrand crouches beside you, eyes glittering wolf-bright under his dented sallet. A raised finger, then another, counting enemy ranks. You glimpse the arrow groove in his ribs, bandaged but seeping, a red punctuation mark under chain links. Pain doesn't slow his arithmetic. He reaches 9 fingers before lowering his hand. 9 rows, maybe 90 men, against your 42. Numbers have lied before. Ledgers don't record avalanches, nor do they remember saints with a taste for lopsided fights. Bertrand taps shield rim. Prepare. Crossbowmen ease quarrels onto strings. Spearmen nestle boot against shale. You test spear shaft for cracks. Arnaud, beside you, grins a crooked sunrise and mutters, "Sing louder." The hermit's voice echoes in the words. Somehow it steadies you. 40 paces. Enemy torches bob like fireflies trapped in jars. You smell their pitch and sweat. The first ladder tips forward. 30 paces. Bertrand gives the only order a man can whisper and still be heard by every heartbeat. Now. Steel sings exactly as the hermit promised. Crossbows snap. 3 torches tumble, snuffing sparks in dew-damp moss. Spears thrust upward like thorns. The hillside erupts into a storm of noise. Clatter of ladders dropping, men shouting warnings in a language you half understand. The wet thud of quarrels meeting flesh. Enemy discipline flickers but holds. Second rank raises shields roof-like, absorbing bolts, while front rank drives forward, their own roar gathering. You and Arnaud leap from cover to cut the ladder crew before wood kisses stone. Your spear point finds a thigh gap. Arnaud's billhook wrenches a shield aside. A torch slips free, lands in spilled pitch, ignites a sudden fan of flame that licks uphill, forcing your line back 2 steps. Heat scalds your cheeks. You taste smoke and pine resin. Somewhere behind, a novice squire screams as flame catches his cloak. Another smothers it with earth, coughing prayers. Bertrand bellows, rallying. You drive again, thrust low under shield rims. The hillside becomes a forge. Every exhale a hammer blow, every heartbeat an anvil strike. Other senses shrink. There is no past, no future, Only the narrow universe from spear point to enemy gaze, where mortality measures scarcely a foot. A horn blasts from below, enemy signal for retreat or regroup, you can't tell. Their rear ranks tangle as they shuffle back over the ridge lip. Some ladders lie abandoned, others drag like wounded animals, scraping rock. You press, though limbs tremble from hours without rest. When your spear splinters on a mail shirt, you seize the broken haft like a club and keep swinging. At last, torches dwindle. Enemy silhouettes disintegrate into the thick dawn mist. Silence topples in on itself, punctured only by groans of your own wounded. You sag to knees, forehead to buckler rim, stunned by how alive you still are. All around, friends share the same disbelieving inventory. Fingers? Still 5. Guts? Inside. Heart? Louder than church bells. Arnaud collapses beside you, laughter and tears tangled. He rips helmet off, lets air bite sweat-matted curls. "That count?" he pants. "Sing loud enough for the saint?" You're about to answer when a fresh trumpet crackles from the northern ridge, 3 rising notes unfamiliar. It isn't enemy or your own banner. It is, unbelievably, the southern levy. Dust clouds crown the horizon. Infantry blocks in tight files, pennons snapping. The courier's promise has hatched into steel reality. You and Arnaud let the absurdity wash over. After all the nights you thought sunrise was a myth, here comes an army wearing it like a mantle. Reinforcements crashing into a battle do not always bring calm. Sometimes victory's birth pangs are louder than defeats. The newcomers charge downhill, desperate to prove worth, clashing with the retreating enemy you already mauled. It's like watching 2 waves collide, spray, driftwood, bodies. You lack strength to join, so you handle triage, carting wounded deeper behind makeshift works, ferrying water skins, steadying men as surgeons poke for arrows. The hermit reappears, inevitably, with a sack bulging aromatic leaves and blue glass vials. He kneels at Bertrand's side, splits the arrow seam, and dribbles syrup that smells of fennel and vinegar. Bertrand winces once, then his breathing steadies. You realize the hermit's robe is shredded, crusted in enemy blood, not his own. Was he on the ledge? Did he bear weapons? Mystery decides to remain mysterious. By afternoon, the field quiets. Enemy standards lie trampled, their holders fled or captured. Smoke pillars mark funeral pyres for siege engines and for men. You help dig graves until blisters reopen. Earth feels softer than flesh right now. Somewhere, a minstrel on injured pay strings a harp, coaxing out a lament too gentle for this valley. At sundown, captains convene under a patched pavilion, parchments spread across a crate. You and other squires stand back, overhearing. Tomorrow, the main siege lines shift 3 miles south. Tonight, we occupy the enemy's abandoned forward camp. The talk moves on to rations, water, and the cost of replacements. A clerk tallies names of dead. Quills scratch like beetles. When he turns to you for Bertrand's squad roll, you recite 12 names. He records 11. "One missing?" he asks. You blink. The hermit never gave his. Evening meal. Barley stew flavored with the marrow from yesterday's bones. You find it delicious because it's hot and doesn't taste like panic.
Knights pass a wineskin that once belonged to the enemy captain. Someone toasts Saint Menace. Someone else jokes the saint might send a bill. Laughter rises, rolls, and finally settles into the hush of spent bodies and distant owls. It's during this hush that Arnaud appears with something hidden behind his back. He presents it like a stolen crown, the broken spear shaft you discarded, scrubbed clean and now wrapped with a strip of blue cloth torn from the enemy standard. Proof, he says, that recycled oaths deserve recycled wood. He's carved words along the length in jagged script. Sing louder. You almost smile until you notice the tremor in his hands. There are tears too, but both of you pretend the campfire smoke is thick tonight. You plant the makeshift banner upright in the soil near your bedroll. It looks silly, small, crooked, defiantly homemade, but every passerby nods at it as though it's a holy relic. Sometimes hope arrives wearing fool's motley. You salute anyway. Midnight. The valley is yours, yet sleep flutters out of reach. Maybe the quiet is too loud. Maybe memories pick this hour to unsheathe. You wander past unlit coals, step beyond sentry lines, and stand on the ledge where morning's fight began. Moonlight silver plates the shale. From here, you see the battlefield sprawled below like a discarded chessboard. Burnt ladders, shattered shields, glints that might be helm clasps or dew. Boot crunch announces company. The hermit joins you, staff aslant like a third leg. He watches the valley too, then murmurs, "Songs linger longer than swords." You answer, "We sang loud enough?" He considers, "Loud enough that tomorrow we'll sing back." He offers a clay cup. You sip, mead cut with rosemary. Warmth slips down, unties knots in your throat. The saint, you ask? Why Menace? The hermit's eyes crease. Patron of lost things and travelers between wars. He taps your chest where his icon rests, and of squires who think they're only squires. A wind gust lifts the blue cloth on your spear banner behind you. It rustles like wings. The hermit nods toward it. Carry that into every night. When you forget the tune, wood will remember. Before you can reply, distant horns call. Lookout signal torches at the far ridge. Survivors maybe, or fresh foes. The siege is not over, only this chapter. You and the hermit turn back toward camp, where captains already rouse men, where Arnaud straps on mail with curses soft as lullabies, where steel prepares again to sing. You square shoulders, grip the spear banner, and feel splintered ash solid under fingers. Dawn's first note waits just beyond the mountains, poised like breath before a song. And that, night owls, is where our tale closes its visor, for now. If the scrape of sword on shield kept you cozy, let me know with a thumbs up so the algorithmic saints smile upon us. Type the fiercest oath you can think of, bleep the vowels, we're civilized, down in the comments. And marshal your fellow insomniacs to subscribe before daylight steals this campfire. Until the next boring history watch, may your torches burn bright and your songs always, always sing louder.